Hello and welcome to Cornish Walking Trails. Today we're walking from Loe Bar to Porthleven. Our walk today will take a look at the tragic past associated with this bar of sand, and then afterwards we'll go down into Porthleven and have a look at the harbour. Porthleven is on the south coast of Cornwall near Helston. Hello everyone. We're taking a look at a famous shipwreck today that went down on Loe Bar in 1807. It's a beautiful spring day. The May blossom is starting to come out on the blackthorn. I love this time of year. Never quite sure. Oh, the dog's just stopped. Never quite sure what to wear. So I've got a lighter jacket on, but I'm sure that as the day goes on, that'll go in the bag.
I've gone with clothes. So for our walk today, we've parked here. This is National Trust car park at Loe. It's March 2022 and this car park at this time is free of charge.
So today's walk is just a there from point A to point B. It's not going to be a circular walk today. We're just going to take you from this car park on the east side of the bar up to Porthleven. Isn't that right?
We are, yeah. I think it's about 3 miles, just purely to go to Porthleven.
Yeah.
Obviously, if you are doing it because you need to get back to your car, it's going to be about 6 miles.
So we will only film the 3 miles between the car park and Porthleven and then turn off the cameras as we walk back, because we'll be so tired by the end of it. We'll be crawling up this slope.
You won't want to watch that.
No. So this is our first glimpse of Loe Bar, and as you can see, it's a big tranche of sand, a lot bigger now than it ever used to be. The blue is the ocean, and on the right, the dark water is actually a freshwater pool with some brine in it. So it's, I think what do they call that?
Brackish?
Brackish, that's the word. I was going to say bracken and I knew that was wrong. Let me just read to you a lovely extract. It's Daphne du Maurier's book, Vanishing Cornwall. And she did this walk in a similar way to what we are, coming down this very road. And she says the approach from the east is by way of a narrow lane, descending steeply, unpractical, praise heaven, for a car. The visitor must walk and is rewarded for his pains by the sudden appearance of the sea upon his left and a whole sweep of the bay, and to his right the darker, stiller waters of a broad inland lake. The high ridge of sand acts as a bridge between the two, and if the day is fine and the sun shining, the effect is dazzling to the eye, the sea of brilliant blue breaking upon the bar, which in itself is gleaming white, and on the nearer side the ripple of fresh lake water lapping the softer sand. What a lovely description. I think we should wander down there and see if it still holds up today. So which is your preferred approach to Loe Bar?
It's got to be this way, isn't it? I mean, we've done it the other way from Penrose Estate before, but you've got those really tall pine trees are in the way and you don't really fully appreciate the bar. But here, it's uninterrupted, isn't it? And you've got this gorgeous view and you've got the sea out to the left-hand side. And on a day like this, it's absolutely shining the bar, isn't it, in the sunshine. Beautiful.
Let's get down there. We've just joined the southwest coast path as if we're heading towards Cornwall, and there is a reason. There's a memorial here to the wreck of the Anson. So this book is a very interesting book. It's called Cornwall and Its People by A.K. Hamilton Jenkins. It tells us here it was first published in 1932, and if you look at those 3 titles, it gives you a clue as to what happened. So the 3 books were then republished in 1945, but because of rations on paper and stuff like that, all 3 volumes were then put into this single book, probably to save paper. Anyway, that's a by the by. The bit that we're interested in is a chapter called Wrecks and Wreckers, and it tells us about the Anson and how the whole event unfolded. So it said that she left Falmouth on the 24th of December 1807, and she was heading for her station at Brest as a lookout ship for the Channel Fleet. a gale from the west-southwest having sprung up shortly after her leaving port, she continued to be buffeted for some days in the seas off Mounts Bay, and at length on the 28th, the winds still increasing, the captain determined to put back to Falmouth. Owing, however, to the mistaking of Land's End for the Lizard, the ship became embayed, and at the cry of "Breakers ahead!" from the men on the lookout, both cables were let go. That's the anchors going down. The Anson rode on these till the morning of the 29th, when they parted, and the captain, in order to save as many lives as possible, decided to breach her on the sands off Loe Pool. Seas mountains high rolled over her, sweeping everything before them. The captain, realising there was no chance of rescue, he gave the orders to the men to save themselves as best they could. Whilst a small proportion succeeded in fighting their way to safety through the boiling surf, the majority of those leapt over the side and were instantly swept off their feet by the terrific undertow. So the bar is like a shelf, and as soon as the sea hits it, it kind of breaks and goes back under itself continually in like a vortex, because the bank is so high, and that's what he means by the undertow. There is actually an account of two local men who, when they discovered that there was women and children on board, they decided to wade through the surf to try and rescue them. In this act of almost unparalleled bravery they succeeded, but at what risk and peril to themselves may be judged by Mr. Fox's own statement. "I went into the surf as far as I could," he writes, "and got so near the ship as to have a child handed to me. I carried the child under one arm and held by the rope with the other. Mr. Roberts, though I begged him, refused the assistance of the rope. After a few moments, however, a tremendous wave broke upon the beach, so we were both enclosed by the waters. As I was holding by the rope, I sustained myself, but Mr. Roberts was washed off his legs. I saw his danger, but feared if I quitted the rope, I should get into the like difficulty. My apprehension, however, for his safety and that of the child prevailed, and I ran the risk, being a tall man, and seized him by the collar, and succeeded in getting him upon his legs again. Otherwise, I do not doubt that both he and the child would have been drowned." So it's quite a devastating scene. You've got rolling seas, you've got men jumping overboard. They're so close to land, and yet they can't get there because of the undertow created by the bar. Sacred to the memory of about 100 officers and men of HMS Anson who were drowned when the ship was wrecked on Loe Bar on the 29th of December 1807 and buried hereabout. That actually means that the men that drowned, as their bodies were washed ashore, they were just brought up onto the cliffside and buried anywhere, unconsecrated ground, regardless of their religion. There was a petition before Parliament, and in the following year it then became illegal to actually just bury the men anywhere. But as we look around, we now know that the bodies of those men are under this turf.
It's hard to imagine now that the Anson went down like that, isn't it?
I know, on such a calm, beautiful day like today, but we've got footage, as you've just seen, of Porthleven in a storm, and it does get mountainous here, quite scary. So if you can imagine being any size boat out in that, you're going to have a rough time. So the first thing that was changed was this law that prevented these poor bodies, these poor men, just being buried anywhere along our shoreline. The second thing that came out of this, Henry Trengrouse from Helston was looking over at the Anson that night, and he felt so bad for these people. He started to design an apparatus, a life-saving apparatus called the rocket.
It's this memorial. It goes on to say that Henry Trengrouse of Helston was so impressed by this tragedy that he invented the life-saving rocket apparatus, which has since been instrumental in saving thousands of lives.
So with that in mind, we visited a museum in Helston today, didn't we?
We did. We went to the Museum of Cornish Life.
Helston Museum is housed in the former market house and drill hall. The museum contains 5 display halls on 3 floors, much bigger than it looks from the outside. It is one of the best social history collections in Cornwall and admission is free. The museum building itself offers a valuable insight into the history and architecture of the town. A notable feature in front of the building is a cannon salvaged from the wreck of the frigate HMS Anson, which foundered off Loe Bar in 1807. So we're here in Helston Museum. We're going to find Henry Trengrouse's life-saving equipment called the rocket.
This is a fabulous display showcasing Henry Trengrouse's life-saving invention. He's a clever man. He invented the rocket. This could be fired from ship to shore or shore to ship. It carried a line which could be linked to rope or chain to carry crew off the ship. The rockets accelerated gradually so that the line would not snap. He also came up with the idea of what he called the life spencer or cork buoyancy aid, and over the years this has been developed into the life jacket. And he also came up with the bosun's chair. Now this was a seat that sailors could sit on and be pulled ashore via the line from the rocket. It was an early form of the breeches buoy. Very clever man. Another book, Sarah.
Yeah, this book takes us forward a little bit more in the story. It takes us to 1949, and the person that wrote this a couple of years after that is called Roland Roddice. He visited several Cornish harbours and tried to speak to the Cornish folk at that time and get an understanding of flavour for each harbour. He visited Porthleven and he actually met the man that erected this memorial. And he says in here that Mr. Frank Strike decided that something should be done to both commemorate the loss of the Anson and the death of those who'd been buried without Christian rites along this part of the coast. He didn't form a committee or launch an appeal to the public. He did it himself at his own cost. With the cooperation of the landowners, he erected 2 crosses on the cliff edge, one at either side of Porthleven village. So the other one is over the other side of Porthleven, and this one is obviously here because he just wanted to commemorate that there are people buried here. Oh, it touches me really.
Do you know, I actually find that quite emotional walking through there.
Yeah.
You know, and you're walking along the southwest coast path and you probably would see the memorial there and you probably read it, but to actually think there's so many people buried there. And if it wasn't for that councillor actually erecting that memorial in the first place, you could probably just walk by here and never even know that these people are buried there.
I find myself looking at this patch of ground now in a new light. What is that hump over there, I'm asking myself? Is there a body under there from all those years ago?
One of the events because of this, Porthleven, the harbour at Porthleven actually got commissioned to be built as a safe harbour, because really from as you go around the Lizard, around Mount Spey, there's no real safe harbour. You've got Penzance,
yes,
and then you've got Falmouth, but there's like nothing in between.
That's very true,
so
actually.
Porthleven was commissioned the harbour there.
You watch the way the wave breaks there, that's right on the shelf, and the outgoing wave just comes back with such ferocity that it almost undoes the energy of the new wave. There you go. I love looking for sea glass. And this is one of the few stretches of coastline where I've never found any. You'd think with the rounding action of the sea, they would look like little tutti fruttis, like little sweeties. But I never found a piece on this stretch. Oh, he's gonna get me. Good boy. No, that's a bit of... He's getting there now. Look. Oh, no, it's all falling in.
Look at that.
I know, they're so well-rounded, aren't they? Makes it very difficult to walk on. It's like walking on hundreds and hundreds of marbles, isn't it?
It's like the hundreds and thousands you get when you decorate a cake.
Yeah. Oh, he's off again. We're in the way, aren't we, boy? Dig, 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 dig. Yeah, dig, 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 dig. Oh, lovely. So this is a bar of sand that's built up with the crashing westerly winds that we get in the storms. The sand is banked up between here and a freshwater lake that's fed by 3 rivers around the Helston area.
So if you didn't know otherwise, you would just think this is just a beautiful beach.
Yeah.
But really, the true extent of this is revealed when you go over the other side and see what we're dealing with over there. Come on. Tidying up?
Yeah. Getting bigger.
So we notice as we crest the ridge of the bar, it changes, doesn't it? We've actually got grass now starting to appear and vegetation under our feet.
I think sometimes you get lovely sea holly on this part of the bar, but it never used to be like this. I remember it always being so sandy. Okay, so that speaks volumes. If our doggy is willing to take a drink out of the lake, it can't be that salty, can it really?
Bit of a wind coming across the lake. They actually look like waves, don't they?
They do.
So right at the very far end of this pool is Helston, which is where we were with the museum earlier on. And this is a River Cober, isn't it, that joins into
And
Cornwall,
2 others as
Loe
well,
Pool.
isn't there? So there's 3 rivers that in the winter feed all the rainwater to this one point.
So, am I right in thinking that years and years ago that Helston was regularly flooded, and because of that they allowed the water to flow out into the sea by cutting a channel across the bar?
Yeah, and that annual event is described in Wilkie Collins's Rambles Beyond Railways. Shall we dig it out?
It's in there, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. One of our favourite books there.
I know, this book is amazing. It was written in 1851, although this particular edition was 1861. And in here, Wilkie Collins visited Loe Bar, or Loe Pool. He actually spells it with a double O. And he says that the heavy, incessant rains which fall in the winter increase day by day the waters in the pool until they encroach over the whole of the low, flat valley between Helston and the sea. So when the flooding of the lake has reached its climax, the millers, who are the principal sufferers by the overflow, prepare to cut a passage through the bar for the superabundant waters of the pool. Before they can do this, however, they must conform to a curious old custom, which has been practised for centuries and is retained down to the present day. That's obviously 1851, not today. Procuring 2 stout leather purses, they tie out 3 halfpence in each and then set off with them in a body to the lord of the manor. Presenting him with their purses, they state their case with all due formality and request permission to cut their trench through the sand. In consideration of the 3-penny recognition of his rights, the lord of the manor graciously accedes to the petition, and the millers, armed with their spades and shovels, start for the bar. On one occasion, so high was the tide on one side and so full the lake on the other that a man actually scraped away sand enough with a stick to give vent to the waters of the pool. So you get the kind of idea that in order to prevent flooding in Helston, they had to drain the water out of this lake and it went in the sea.
You know I like to be prepared.
Yes.
Well, I brought with me today
Stick.
It's not a stick.
What is it?
This is a special device for
A lake.
cutting the bar.
A lake draining device.
That's what it is. So It's quite a simple task apparently, is it?
Yeah, it shouldn't take you any time at all
Alright,
to create
won't be long then. And all this water will just release and gush into the sea, will it?
In theory.
Right, here we go then.
Yeah.
This ain't working, is it?
No.
I might be a while.
Yeah.
Oh look, here it's starting. Here it's coming.
All right.
Here we are, look at this.
News flash.
Look at this.
Draining Loe Bar.
Here we are, I'm helping those millers. Here we are. Look at it. Wow.
Yeah, it's gone about 4 inches, Andrew.
Isn't it illegal, is it?
I don't know. I don't think so. Little boys would do it. The trouble is you're not a little boy anymore.
I might be a while.
The dog wants it.
Wait, that's mine. I want that. Mine.
Good boy. Anyway, I don't think you'll be employed by South West Water to do a draining.
Yeah, I think I needed to stick with that a bit longer.
I think you're barking up the wrong tree.
I think you're right.
Okay, I'm going to head over to the new flood defence. I wonder if you can see anything. Last time when we came down, well, not last time, we've been here since, but a few years ago when we came down, there was all sorts of heavy plant diggers creating a channel to put a pipe in. We wondered what on earth they were doing at the time, and now it all makes sense. So we can hear the water flowing through. So it must be maintaining a specific level in the lake. Oh yeah, it's roaring. You've got hundreds of gallons of water coming out of the lake every hour, but there's nothing, no outlet on the beach. Daphne du Maurier's book might give us a clue. There is a gully that she photographed at the time with water spilling out, and it's down towards and underneath the house. You can see the house in the background of the photo. Yeah, so that's the gully. I reckon they've just linked up their new flood defence with the old gully from the 1960s. When
Yeah,
did
you can see, yeah, 1960s. You can see the roof line of the property up there.
Yeah. The sea's already had an effect. Look, the wires that are reinforcing the concrete are starting to poke through. And it's all rounded. Look at that.
Just before we leave Loe Bar, Sarah,
Yes.
I've got another little story and you'll go, ooh!
Oh, okay.
So, years ago, there was a legend that King Arthur and the sword of Excalibur is in that pool.
Oh, okay, because modern day versions is it's Dosmery Pool or Bodmin Moor.
Bodmin Moor, but reference years ago suggested it was here.
Ah,
Loe Pool.
how fascinating.
Keeps me awake at night.
Coastal erosion.
Coastal erosion.
It's a thing, you know.
It is a thing. It won't be here much longer.
No.
With the rate of coastal erosion they've suffered here over the last few years, this will now be called the unstables. Gorgeous property, isn't it? Victorian?
I guess.
Wonder how much longer that'll be there.
Porthleven is in the middle distance now, just on the edge of the village, aren't we?
We are, yes.
Never feels very long.
No, and this is like a relatively new pathway that they've put in, wasn't it? Because the old one, obviously with coastal erosion, has been swept away, so they've had to come inland a bit. But the views are beautiful up here, it's gorgeous.
Such a lovely spring day as well.
As you may know, we actually put virtual walks out on our channel from time to time, and a couple of years ago we came to Porthleven, parked in this car park we just walked through, we walked into Porthleven. We'll leave a link at the end of the video if you fancy having a look at that.
So here we are, we've made it all the way to Porthleven along that beautiful coastal walk, one of my favourites in Cornwall. And the reason we're here is this is one of the final ripple effects of the wreck of the Anson.
It is, yeah. So there was a Bill of Parliament passed in 1811 that they had to find a new safe haven somewhere on this bit of the stretch of the coast. And they settled on Porthleven to build a harbour here.
Yeah.
And they thought initially it was going to take them 5 years to build. But I think it took about 15 years in the end.
And the cost went up tremendously, and they ended up building it from sea to land instead of from land to sea, because every time they went from land to sea, storms would dash all their efforts.
Yes, this harbour officially opened in 1825. And it's stood the testament of time, isn't it?
Yeah, and there's kind of an inner harbour that gives more sanctuary. It's still quite a place to watch storms in the winter, but here today you wouldn't even believe it, would you?
It's a beautiful place to come and just watch, isn't it?
And finally, just to dot the I's and cross the T's, join the circle, this is a cannon that the RNS Cold Rose recovered from the seabed, and they believe it's from the Anson.
Oh yeah. And there is a matching one on the other side of the harbour there, isn't it? Just in front of the shipping. Guarding the harbour.
I know. Lovely memorial too, isn't it?
Perfect way to finish a walk with an ice cream. I think we deserved it today, so got on for the doggy as well. Yeah, he likes that.
I think the saddest part about that story today is that Trengrouse actually died penniless in the end. He was a cabinet maker. He ended up selling or pawning, I believe, all of his tools and equipment to make cabinets, and he invested all of his time, money, health and effort into trying to perfect this life-saving device for everybody else. But I don't think he ever got the recognition, did he?
No, and the amount of lives that he was saved because of his lifetime's work. And as you said, he never really got the recognition for it, and in the end he died penniless.
Even accused of jumping on the bandwagon to seek fame and fortune, but I don't think that was his motive, do you?
No, not at all. No, I think it was the events of that day that changed the rest of his life.
The ripples of a wreck, eh?
Ripples of a wreck.
So here we are, we're just going to show you what we've done today. We've parked here at National Trust car park, Shivarlo, and we've taken this little route down to Loe Bar, across the bar, and just followed the southwest coast path all the way up to Porthleven and come back again. So we're back here, back at Loe Bar where this video started. A nice way to end a video.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed today. I mean, we've learnt so much. I mean, the effects of the wreck of HMS Anson and how that changed things going forward.
The tragedy did actually bear fruit as life-saving equipment. I think it's wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. And this walk, you sort of, as you walk along, you find out more about the events from that day.
Yeah, the ripples, how far they went. So we hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, then perhaps you'd be kind enough maybe to hop over to our website, make a donation, help us make more videos like this. But for now, thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.